what is the solution to this eye poke problem in MMA? Something has to be done, and it seems like no one who's actually able to do something about it will try to solve this because it's ruining the sport. We've had so many fights end because of an eye poke, from Fight Night main events, contender fights, and now even title fights. Tom Aspinall vs. Ciryl Gane was the only title fight to ever end because of an eye poke. There was Randy Couture vs. Vitor way back in the day, but that ended because the glove grazed Randy Couture's eyelid, so it wasn't really an eye poke, but you know. This was like officially the first ever title fight ending from an eye poke, and that technique is becoming more prevalent in MMA. Oh, and by the way, Tom is okay, it seems like. He went to the doctor and they said he has no serious damage to his eye, which means he could probably return pretty soon and get this rematch going. Tom versus Gane 2 is going to be epic, but man, they are cooking Tom after he visited the doctor. So much of the narrative now is that he faked it because he has no serious eye injury and his eye looks like as if he played League of Legends all day or something. We've all been there, and maybe it is as bad as tearing your eyes out, but bro, we can't mistake that Gane tried to give him a lobotomy. But the eye poke was pretty bad in the moment. You could lose vision temporarily without any serious damage. Regardless though, everybody's gonna have their opinion as to whether Tom faked it or not. There's a bigger issue in MMA. We got fighters poking each other in the eye, 1-2 combinations like Chris Weidman. We got precise barrages to the eye like Manel Kep attacking Asa Almabayev's left eye. Henry Cejudo losing to Song Yadong. And now we got Ciryl Gane trying to grab onto Tom's thoughts. Literally. The eye pokes are only evolving, better with technique, and even makes John Jones envious about how proficient these fighters are getting with that. And speaking of John Jones, oddly, so many of his opponents have resorted to eye pokes. Whether intentional or not, Daniel Cormier, Alexander Gustafsson, Ciryl Gane, and even Anthony Smith all went to poke their opponents after fighting John Jones, learning that if you can't beat him, join him. And speaking of Anthony Smith, bro had a lot to say about Tom Aspinall, talking about what he would do, and he went to Singapore and he got poked in the eye, but he continued and he was disappointed with what happened with Tom Aspinall. Thankfully, Anthony the Lionheart Smith is here to teach everybody of what a real champion would do. And the funny thing is he could have become a champion if he did what Tom did. He would have won more money and he would have been a champion. But no, he decided to sit on the ground and allow John Jones to win so he can impress some random people. Awesome, very intelligent, profound stuff from Anthony Smith. The guy who's in a fetal position so much that you can mistake it as his natural fighting stance. Bro, if one of my casual friends who didn't know about Anthony Smith watched one of his fights, they'd probably ask me, why is that guy always curled up on the ground? Oh, don't worry about that. That's the way he fights. And he's definitely not quitting in those moments. How is he criticizing Tom so much? Bro, he was also poking Glover Teixeira in the eye. But thank you, Anthony Smith, for teaching all of us what a real champion would do. I'm sure Tom Aspinall is grateful for your advice. He should have fought blinded and lost. Yes, that's exactly what he should have done. No, but jokes aside, I disagree with Anthony Smith. I don't think a champion should fight blinded. Tom Aspinall's there to provide for his family. Why risk that to impress Anthony Smith or anybody else? He's going to go into another title fight where he's going to get pay-per-view points and make a lot more money. But the main thing is that there has to be some sort of solution to the eye poke problem. Well, first we have to address why the eye pokes are so prevalent. I think we just have some of the worst referees in sports. They're so afraid to deduct a point from a fighter for cheating. Honestly, when is the last time a fighter got a point deducted for an eye poke? I can't even remember the last time that's happened. It's benefited fighters. It's rewarded them. The worst case scenario from an eye poke is getting a no contest. Generally, fighters benefit from it. They poke their opponent in the eye, their opponent continues compromised, and then they beat their blinded opponent after. That's usually how it plays out, and it would have happened to Tom Aspinall if he continued. He would have lost the fight, lost the belt, and probably would not have gotten an immediate rematch. I honestly could have seen them just go to the Volkov trilogy, and especially after Tom saying that he doesn't want to fight Ante D'Elia, and his dad said that he should fight out his contract to go to boxing. That's the Ngannou path. And if he were to have lost to Ciryl Gane, I do not think they would have given him a title shot. And what would the narrative have been if Tom continued to fight and lost? Because he would have. With 100% certainty, they would have criticized him for continuing. But fighters getting eye poked, continue compromised, is generally what happens. The best case scenario is actually winning from the eye poke directly. We saw this happen in 2 fights in like the last year and a half. Chris Weidman TKO'd Bruno Silva stemming from an eye poke combination. Manel Kep pounced on Asa Almabayev for the TKO. Bro, he was precisely poking that left eye with all different angles, raking at it, poking at it, just launching the full arsenal of eye pokes on Almabayev's left eye specifically. He didn't even touch the right eye. He knew exactly what he was doing. And Almabayev still has a loss from that. The Henry Cejudo situation with Song Yadong was quite different. He got poked in the eye, decided to continue, which is the criticism that Tom Aspinall's getting. He was getting beat up, he was completely defensive, he couldn't see, and understood after Song Yadong was beating him that there was no chance of victory, so he called the fight off and lost by a technical decision. If he did what Tom Aspinall did and just called off the fight immediately after the eye poke, that would have been a no contest instead of a decision loss. And that's the whole thing, man. Tom is getting so much criticism for getting eye poked and not continuing. Which is very odd because most of the criticism is not on the guy who poked his eye, the guy who cheated. Ciryl Gane cheated, as he usually does. The guy low blows opponents, hits him in the back of the head, finishes them with those too. He grabbed the fence against Volkov, and now eye poking them. How many fights has Ciryl Gane cheated in? He low blowed John Jones. He poked Tom Aspinall in the eye. He finished JDS and Tai Tuivasa with shots to the back of the head. It happens so often throughout his career. Yet now when a title fight is called off because he poked Tom Aspinall in the eye, Tom is the one that gets all the criticism. Even pundits of the sport, professional analysts at the desk are criticizing him. Not as much Ciryl Gane though. That's very peculiar. Ciryl Gane was the one who cheated, and I guarantee if Tom decided to continue, there was no chance they would have deducted a point. They never do. The referee was Jason Herzog, who is sometimes really good, but I don't think he would have taken a point away. And he talked to Tom Aspinall after the fight and said that cheating works. And it does. He's right. Jason Herzog is 100% right. Cheating works. It's a benefit. Fighters should be doing it because none of these referees, except one, are enforcing the rules fairly. The only guy who did earlier on the card was the referee for Mitch Raposo versus Azat Maksum. Rich Mitchell took a point away from Azat Maksum for a single fence grab. No warnings, no hard warnings, no very hard warnings. Or what about the stern warnings? Those definitely got fighters to stop cheating. It's crazy how many times a referee will warn a fighter from cheating before taking a point away. I still remember Khabib and Conor. Like, that was insane. Herb Dean's explanation of that was he was doing all different types of cheating, so I couldn't take a point away. So you're telling me a fighter can eye poke, low blow, fence grab, fish hook, pull out a machete, then a handgun, like, just because they're all different, he won't take a point away? So what you're saying is a fighter has to be versatile in cheating, not one-dimensional. Interesting. Isn't that just incentivizing cheating even more? And that's what all of this is. The fact that no fighters are getting deducted a point is incentivizing cheating. And I think it's one reason as to why you see it so often now. It's not punished, it's incentivized. You can win the fight and get your win bonus off of cheating. It's insane, dude. In basketball, if you travel, there's a turnover and the other team gets control of the ball. If you pass offsides in football, the other team gets a penalty kick to score. If you eye poke in MMA, you usually win. Or at worst, get a no contest. And remember guys, this is a very serious sport. This is the most professional and the hardest sport in the world, and yet they cannot enforce rules when a fighter cheats. The professionalism is off the charts. I know some people say, what about Drew Dober, right? Drew Dober got a point deducted for low blowing Kyle Prepolek. Bro, he should have been disqualified for that low blow. That was horrible. And then what happened after the low blow? He TKO'd Kyle Prepolek because Prepolek wanted to continue. Exactly what would have happened with Tom Aspinall only able to see out of one eye, dude. Even with two eyes, it was not easy. He was not going to beat him with one. So I think the primary issue is that the referees are not deducting points or disqualifying fighters. And until they set that precedent, this is always going to be an issue in MMA. Now, there are some other solutions. I think, of course, a glove change would help, especially to the Pride gloves, but they seem to have too much pride to actually make that change. There's a reason why eye pokes were pretty much non-existent in Pride. You never saw it, and I think the gloves somewhat contributed to that success, but not entirely. This is not the most important thing. I know Joe Rogan has hammered on this before, and just logically it doesn't follow because fighters are going to eye poke if they want to, regardless of the gloves that they use. Now, to be fair, the UFC did try to implement their own gloves, and they were cursed. The eye pokes got even worse. I don't know what happened there, but it does sort of prove that a glove change is not necessarily the ultimate solution to this. If a fighter wants to poke, he's going to do that regardless if he has the Pride glove or the UFC glove. I think the main solution is the referees being more strict on fouls. I think an automatic point deduction would solve much of the issue, honestly, because fighters currently are too comfortable extending their fingers out. They do it on purpose sometimes to obtain some sort of advantage, but not all of them are intentional, of course. I do think, though, even with the unintentional eye pokes, extending the fingers is not much of a concern of theirs. Due to the current MMA landscape, it's only going to be a concern for the guy getting eye poked. So why not eye poke? It's actually rewarded in the sport more often than not. And how many fighters have lost after continuing from getting eye poked? Most of them, right? If I'm not wrong, most fighters who have continued have lost. eye pokes work. As the referee Jason Herzog has said, eye pokes work. They're effective, and they're rarely ever enforced against. Until we get more referees like Rich Mitchell, eye pokes and low blows and fence grabs are always going to be an issue. And it's not just exclusively eye pokes. It's all of it. Honestly, just from that one job that he had for that one fight, I would pick him as referee of the year. Just based off of that, that's how bad refereeing is in this sport. What I think the solution should be, which may seem strict, but you need strict solutions for chronic problems. I think any eye poke or low blow should be an automatic point deduction. Now, when it comes to disqualifications, I don't know, I'm still debating that. For an example, do you guys think that Ciryl Gane should have gotten disqualified for poking Tom in the eye and ending it? I don't know. Like, it can set a precedent for fighters to never poke their opponent in the eye because you might just lose the fight off of it. And I guarantee fighters will make those changes to never eye poke. Now, there is an issue that can arise from that, and that is we will get a lot of Oscar-winning performances, and it's true, but at the same time, that's not going to happen if the other guy doesn't cheat. So I don't know what the solution is with disqualifications, but I think the automatic point deduction would do wonders for the sport. Now, fence grabs, I don't think generally are as bad as low blows and eye pokes. Those can get a warning. I think a warning for an unimpactful fence grab is sufficient. Now, if the fence grab is impactful, then it should be an automatic point deduction. That's the issue that the sport has and some of the solutions that the sport desperately needs right now. And leave in the comments below, what do you guys think? How else should they solve the eye poke issue? And I'll see you guys in the next video.